Boys College Football Show. As always, I'm Christian Hunt, and that guy sitting, oh, you got it right this time. No, my left from my right. I'm dangerous now. Right over there is
Chris Vaca. Congratulations, Christian, on figuring out your left-right directions there. Proud of you, son. Very proud of you. Speaking of college football, though, you brought that up off the rip. What'd you think of this weekend, man?
well, Chris. If you decided to bet some money on this weekend,
Ooh, yeah, I did.
on some college football, RIP,
Yeah,
because nobody was safe. Nobody was safe.
no.
There was at one point, I think, if you look down at some of the scores, or you were just watching some of the games. I mean, my wife was like, "Man," she called me. She was out of town shooting for a wedding, and she said, "Oh, Georgia took care of business. They really handled Vanderbilt." And I said, "You didn't watch the game, did you?" And she said, "You know the answer to that." I said, "Well, at one point of that game, we were down 7-0 in the
Yeah, you were.
first quarter, not even 5 minutes into the game."
Yeah, that was blown coverage though, wasn't it? Though I mean, by that kid, I think for Georgia, I saw Kirby kind of
Yeah.
chewing his ass after that play. Hats off to Vandy though, man. Hats off to Vandy. They showed up. Georgia's still a good football team. I know people are gonna hate on him. There he is. There's the guy. But no, it was a good game. Like
There
I said,
he is.
it was an interesting game there. You guys got some people injured. Brock Bowers, dude, ankle. I hope he's not out for too long.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I know at the end of that game they were interviewing Kirby, and he obviously talked about it. He said, "Thank God we got a bye week." I mean, he's like, "We need to rest up. We need to get healthy," and I mean, and they do. And Gator Swag, by the way, congratulations. I know, you guys beat South Carolina, a team you self-described as being a pitiful team, and you guys beat them, by 2 points. It was a good, and I will say this though, I was thinking about you watching that game, especially on that last drive there. I might have been a little wrong on Graham Mertz, right? He showed me a little something in that game. Now, I don't think South Carolina is necessarily a world beater, but they are an SEC team, and he did beat an SEC caliber team, right? Who I was pretty high on coming into the season. Not gonna say as the season goes on, I'm going to be necessarily any higher on them I can't see that you would be high on that South Carolina team, but man, it's a good thing for Florida. It's a good thing for that program, I think, right? Hats off to Florida. Hats off to Graham Mertz. It kills me to say it. Let's do this, and I just want you to do me one favor, and I'll turn it over to Chris here. But here's what I want us to do, right? Let's calm it down on the trash talk. We got a bye week, dude. We got 2 weeks before the world's largest outdoor cocktail party kicks off, all right? Let's save this for the week leading up to it, right? I want us to kind of be cordial with one another, right? And if you got to get upset, turn all that shit to Chris because he can handle it. I can't.
No, I won't say it. I'm not going to say Florida's a great team yet because they're not. I will say that Graham Mertz played the best game I've seen him play all year, so I'll give him that. He did play pretty well on that one. That was actually a good football game to watch. I watched it, lost a couple $100 on it because I thought South Carolina they were up there by 10 in the fourth quarter. It kind of pissed me off. But good football game to watch. That was a must-win game for Florida, as we talked about yesterday, against an SEC school. So they got it done. Bowl season still eligible for Florida yet going forward. Schedule's definitely not going to get any easier for those guys, but hats off Florida. I will say that.
And looking at it, we'd kind of touched on the Michigan-Indiana game. I mean, we'd both said, hey, that game was interesting, I feel like, for a few different reasons. Because it was we said it was going to be close for about a half, and it was.
Yeah, then
and then the second half kicked off, and it wasn't.
I believe Indiana was up 7-0 to start that game, kind of like what Rutgers did to them a couple weeks ago. And then that thing was close for a little bit. And then, man, Michigan does what Michigan does. So they just wear you out playing bully football over there, man. Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum, smash mouth, massive offensive line. Michigan looks like a pretty good football team, but I'm going to keep saying this. They haven't played anybody yet. They really haven't until they play somebody of note. I'll consider Michigan definitely a top 10 team so far this year, but man, they got to play somebody, Christian. I'm waiting for them to play somebody decent. Seems like everybody else, Notre Dame, Ohio State, teams, Alabama, Georgia's played somebody at least. Michigan has not played anybody yet.
No, I agree with you, and I think that really comes back to haunt you the further you get into a season, right? I mean, for example, look at USC yesterday. We'll touch on them here in a bit, but I mean that starts to haunt you. I feel like the further you get down into a season, I'm gonna say this, and I mean seriously. You look at some of these teams around the country, like a Florida, for example, right? They have to go on the road to start the season and play a Utah, right? And then they have to play some of these other teams. Like Tennessee comes in, they get Tennessee in the Swamp, and they got to play some different tough teams. And I think it gives you confidence, right? Because as you go through the season, it starts to kind of lighten up. Hey, we've seen some tough teams already. Hey, man, we had to go travel, how many thousands of miles out to the West Coast and go play Utah.
Yep.
Right? I mean, whereas, like you said, if you're a team like Michigan who's had cupcakes, then I don't get it, man. I mean, I like you said, I don't. It doesn't help you, I think, in the long run of your season, right? It gives you this false confidence, and it makes you very susceptible to some of these trap games, quote unquote. I think.
No, you're not wrong, Christian. And also, I think a big thing is when you're non-con. Michigan's notorious for never scheduling a big game in your non-con. I think that goes back to hurt you too if you're on a fringe playoff type of thing, like going into next year, right? They're going to the 12 team, right, Christian? If you don't beat anybody earlier in the year of note, like remember Georgia beat, what was it, Oregon last year? Just mollywopped them in one of the first, was it the first game of the year? Maybe the second, I don't remember. But that just adds credibility to your resume. And that's what I love about teams like that do that, right? Wisconsin's playing Alabama early next year. That's awesome for both those schools. Florida State played LSU. Michigan never does that, and it bothers me. It really does. That's one knock I have about whoever schedules their games over there.
Yeah. I mean, it's nobody wants to see that shit, dude.
No.
Nobody wants to see it. We'll kind of do this because Gator Swag has a good question here. He said, I do have a question, not being mean or anything. Why did Georgia struggle with Vandy when Georgia's way better than them? I think a lot of that has to do, like, I don't want to come on here and say, well, it's because we're banged up, because I feel like even the backups, are still really talented. I think I thought about this all day yesterday, and Chris asked me, there's been some other people on the internet that are Georgia fans, and normally they're pretty harsh on Georgia, but they didn't really get really hard on Georgia yesterday. I think logically looking at it, I think it really boils down to a couple things. I think this is a very young Georgia team. I mean, a lot of guys are, sophomores or haven't really played a lot, throughout of the SEC. The offensive line super banged up. Carson Beck had to put a lot of it on his shoulders yesterday, I feel like, and it's part of that new system where they get away from Todd Monken and they're going back to Mike Bobo, and Bobo's saying, "Hey, let's throw the damn ball." We've got probably two running backs that are about as healthy as they can get, and one guy who's super talented, and Kendall Milton, who's probably still banged up and trying to keep him healthy for the long stretch. So they're probably trying to throw the ball, get Carson Beck, in there a lot more, and that puts a lot more pressure on everybody, the offensive line, the quarterback, the receivers, everything like that. And they're trying to get in rhythm. I think the other side of it is, these 11 o'clock games, man, on the road. And I've been to Vandy. I've been to that stadium a couple times. It's a weird place to play. You know what I mean? Especially with the fact that they're kind of tearing out some of their seating and some of their stadium, and they're doing some different stuff. It's almost like playing at like a high school field in a way. And so I just have a feeling Georgia just was kind of sleepwalking their way through that game. They probably came in and thought, "Hey, man, we're gonna run these guys off the field." And let me tell you right now, I mean, I'm not trying to sit here and say Vandy's a world beater by any stretch of the imagination. I think they got kind of surprised because Vandy does have some guys that have some speed in the receiver room right there. Yeah. Right? But I think really the biggest thing Georgia's missing this year, and I said this before the season started, was I think Georgia's missing that inside leverage that they've had in years past with Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt and Jalen Carter, where you've got a first-round guy that's super talented that can kind of create pressure and force you to step out and then you've got somebody, like a Nolan Smith or a whoever you want to insert name on that edge that's going to come up and get to the quarterback, right? They're just it's not the same defense, and they're more susceptible to giving up big plays, I think, right? So that's the big thing. I was shocked too to see it was a 30 to 20 score late in the fourth quarter, right? But let's also be honest. I mean, at home, Florida dispatched them, but that game was close at Florida as well too for a little bit when they played at the Swamp.
Yeah, I think it's inexperience. Georgia lost a ton of talent on the defensive side of the ball. That's showed this year. This defense isn't the 2021 or 2022 defense. I mean, it just happens. That's the world of college football we live in. I will give hats off to Vandy. Vandy made some big plays in that game, and they got some guys that can catch a football on the outside. And some of those catches they were making were ridiculous. I'm not knocking Georgia's offense. They've had so many injuries. They don't have a Nick Chubb or a Todd Gurley back there or a Sony Michel. They don't have that kind of running back this year. They just don't. It's almost like you guys throw the ball to set up the run. It's just a different offense this year. And I think Mike Bobo and Kirby Smart are doing the best with what they got this year. It's just a different look Georgia team. And Georgia's still going to be formidable the whole entire year here until somebody shows up and can play with them for 4 quarters. I'll believe it, but right now, hats off to Vandy. I thought Vandy probably played one of their best games they played all year by far. And I've watched them play a couple times. They played a really good game yesterday.
You said if Georgia plays like they did yesterday versus Florida, Florida will stay in the game. I agree.
Yep.
I actually agree with that. If you'd have told me that probably last week,
right,
probably wouldn't have agreed. But I mean, again, that's what makes college football so good. As we get further into this thing, we really don't know. We really don't know what we've got until we get kind of at this point in the season and we start seeing things and how teams respond. And, we start to get a little bit better data. And it is a neutral site game. It's in Jacksonville, obviously, as everybody knows. So it'll be a fun game. I mean, really and truly, it's going to be a fun game. And I can't wait to see, how it all kind of shakes out.
Absolutely.
Looking ahead a little bit more here, Chris, Ohio State handled Purdue. Florida State handled Syracuse. Owned them. UMass held in for like 2 minutes.
Why is Penn State scheduling a game like that in the middle of the season, man? What the fuck is that all about?
Hey, man.
There's another team that didn't schedule anybody in the offseason either, man. Or Don. Yeah, come on, man. Play somebody.
I don't get it. Next week's going to be fun. We're gonna double down on our Miami UNC bet, which we'll get here in a bit.
Let's go.
But Oregon Washington game of the day.
If you guys didn't watch this one, you're missing out. That was, by the way, those two teams right there could be ranked number 1 and 2, regardless after yesterday. I truly think both those teams yesterday, defensively, offensively, man, the amount of playmakers both these teams have on both sides of the ball, unbelievable. That was an unbelievable game in an unbelievable environment. I know it came down to a missed kick. I kind of wanted to see that go to overtime and let them hash it out, to be honest, as a football fan. But I know people are going to ride Dan Lanning on the 4th down and 3 call at the 50-yard line. Gave the ball back to Washington, 2 plays they score. But I agree with Dan Lanning, man. You got to put confidence. He had a lot of confidence in his offense, as he should, in Bo Nix. And they just didn't get it. And, boy, I know people are going to say that was the outcome of the game. But that was just a fun game to watch, Christian. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I agree. It was a great game. Honestly, I got to stop doing this shit. I turned the game off. When Oregon had the ball there, in the last couple minutes, and I was like, Oregon's got this shit. No big deal. Well, I was wrong. I was very wrong. So, but hats off to Washington, man. I mean, you kind of called them to win that game. Washington was a team I think I picked on the outside to win the Pac-12 this year, and you said, I don't see how they're going to do that. And then you sold me on the Oregon, right? Mm-hmm. You sold me on the Oregon side of it, and so I decided, well, let me take Oregon in this one, right? Because I think what I thought was going to happen, and I still think this could happen, right? Because what I wanted to have happen was Oregon win that game, both teams win out, they rematch again in the Pac-12 championship, and Washington kind of gets them. I think they will see each other again. I think they're going to see each other again.
This reminds me of 2 Big 12 teams that just played the week before. Oklahoma, Texas. It's like the same scenario to me. They're going to meet each other again, more than likely, just like Oregon and Washington are. And it's hard to beat a team twice in the same season. It don't happen. Watch the NFL. It's tough to do. And like I said, this was a great game. You hit the nail on the head, man. It was back and forth. Or actually, Washington at one point was up like 13. Oregon comes storming back. Looks like they have it in the bag. They don't go. They miss it on fourth down. Washington scores 2 plays. Boom. Oregon flies right down the field. Kid had like a 43, 44 yarder. It looked good most of the way. He just hit it a little bit too far right. Man, it just weird way to end it. I mean, kind of a suck way to end the game because I was like, God, go into overtime. Even though I bet on Washington yesterday, I kind of wanted to watch that thing. Those 2 quarterbacks sling it out, man. It was a fun game to watch, 100%.
Yeah. You were talking about Dan Lanning going for it on fourth down, and something that really, really fired me up and pissed me off at a guy that I didn't think I could ever really get fired up or pissed off at was Sam Pittman in that Arkansas-Alabama game. I mean, there were so many times at critical points, not like, and I think when you play a team like against Alabama, every series is a critical point in that game. That they had the ball and it was 4th and 2, 4th and 1, and it was at or near midfield. They had room, they had leverage. I think they should have went for it. Right?
Yeah.
I really think they should have went for it. And they just didn't do it. They decided, hey, we're going to punt the ball back. We're going to be safe. And even against a team like Bama that's trying to find themselves this year, play murder ball, Jalen Milroe is going to have a game where he looks like an absolute, first-round draft pick, and then he's going to have another game where he looks like he should be playing running back. You got to be able to still momentum and still confidence. I mean, and there were certain points where I think Arkansas, they were moving the ball, they were doing what they needed to do, and they decided, hey, we're just going to punt the ball back to them, and we'll put everything on our defense. And you can't do that. You can't do that against a team like Bama. Another thing that really pissed me off was they got the ball back and they had probably, I think it was like 35 seconds or 40 seconds. They got the ball back right before the half, and they just decided we're going to run it out. It's like you got time, you got some timeouts. Why not try to take a shot and maybe still 3 points?
Well, what gets me too, you touched on it, is they have nothing to lose. Arkansas season's been done since it started, and you're playing at Bama. They were down, like 17, 20 to nothing in this game at one point or something like that. And they come roaring back, and it's like, God damn, you have nothing to lose. Go for it. Who gives a shit? Nobody's picking Arkansas to even be in that game at all. And I'm with you. I didn't understand that at all. I watched part of that game. I'm not going to say I watched the whole thing, but I'm with you, Christian. I don't know.
They were actually up 6-0 at one point.
Arkansas, that's right. They did. You're right. They did. Okay, sorry.
Because they kicked a bunch of field goals, and it's like, I don't disagree with that. You got to take every point, but Gary Swag says it best. I mean, Sam Pittman needs to go. I mean, that was my thought yesterday. But I woke up this morning. I did my push-ups. I've got some of those demons and some of that anger out a little bit, and I don't think he needs to go. I just think he needs to be more aggressive. I mean, what do you really have to lose at this point? Once you hit 2 losses in college football, I don't care what anybody says, especially, this year. Maybe next year it's not going to matter as much when they go to the 12-team playoff. But this year, there's only 4 teams are getting in. And chances are, if you got 2 losses, you're probably not. You probably are not going to get in.
No,
right? It's just a numbers game, right? There's too many good teams at the top that are going to probably end up doing what they need to do. And a one-loss team has kind of been debated, I think, throughout the whole part of it there. So I don't know, Chris. I mean, for me, it just is you got to take your shots. You have nothing to lose. Even if you lose that game 50-0 because you tried to take a bunch of shots inside of your own territory, who cares? I mean, what's worse, to lose the game 50-7 or to lose the game 24-21?
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that level, especially Arkansas, a team who you want to talk about a team I was high on and way off was Arkansas. A lot of people thought Arkansas was going to have a big year this year, probably win 8 or 9 games with all the talent they return, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Fuck, dude, they're 2-5 or 2-6 right now. I mean, that team's not very good. They're underachieving, and that was a chance to knock off Bama at home, which would have been a huge win for them.
I agree with you, Chris. I agree. Now you've got me fired up this morning. Well, looking at USC and Notre Dame, I mean, that was a game that, a lot of people I think a lot of people were betting on Notre Dame to win that game.
Yeah.
But, conventional wisdom might say, hey, USC will rise to the challenge here. They ran into the best defense they're going to see this year. And I think you kind of saw the blueprint on how to beat USC. It's not easy. You just got to have a really good defense.
Yeah, I think USC is going to struggle like a mofo against Washington. I think they also got Oregon this year at the end of the year, back to back or something like that. They're going to get mollywopped. Notre Dame is a more physical team, clearly, and it showed last night. And USC is just a team. This is Lincoln Riley at his finest, man. And USC hadn't played a single soul up until this game. And I think a lot of people, I couldn't believe how much money was on Notre Dame last night to win that football game. And they went out there and I mean, this game wasn't even close. It really wasn't. I mean, maybe the first quarter was 10-3, I think. And then other than that, USC couldn't do anything. Hats off Notre Dame. We'll talk about the team that they just lost to last week here shortly and what they did last night against Pitt. But big win for Notre Dame. Good for them. USC, see you later. Not a playoff team. Might not even be a top 20 team, to be honest with you, at the end of the year.
Caleb Williams is more concerned about what NFL team he's going to, and he may not even go to the draft this year. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that kid, I can't put all this on him, but I mean, still, you know, we still got a long season yet left. So the game that you tried to tell me about, you tried to warn me about, you gave me every chance to change my mind. UNC, Miami.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what can I say? Miami has all the pieces, I think. They had all the pieces. They have all the talent. I mean, I like Cristobal as a coach, but they just folded. And let me tell you right now, for North Carolina, thought, okay, they got that kid Tez Walker, back. How many touchdowns do you have? Three? Three? Looked like he'd been out there balling out all year. Didn't miss a beat.
No, he had 6 catches, 132 yards, 3 touchdowns.
I can see now why they really wanted to get him eligible.
Mm-hmm. He's good.
But it took UNC getting a 35-year-old man who should be in the NFL, back for me to really start believing.
Man, you got to come on, man. You just can't give any props to North Carolina, man, dude. North Carolina's a good football team, dude. Drake Mesa, he might be the best quarterback in college football. I'm telling you, dude. He's up there. They got a great offense. You said it best, though. Miami, we talked about this a little bit. Miami's a good football team. They got a lot more talent than they have the past couple of years, but their defense, the penalties, it's typical Miami shit that kills them, man. That's why they lost to Georgia Tech the week before. I just can't put any faith in Miami. I just can't. And it's not because of the talent.
No, I agree with you. One thing I was wrong about, Chris, and we touched on this before we went live today, and that is I was shocked. UNC, to me, their defense looks a lot better, I think, than where they're rated at, on paper. I mean, they shut Miami down at certain points in that game. And we talk about this a lot on the show, where they took away the run game and they forced Miami to beat them. And then, the offense just kept pouring points on them. They just kept moving the ball down the field and picking apart Miami's defense. And, like I said, I think UNC, in all honesty, they are a much better team than what I probably thought they were. You were trying to tell me this whole time. And it's going to make that Florida State matchup a lot more interesting, I will say that. I don't know if I can outright pick UNC yet at this point to win, but I think it's going to be, it's got that potential to be kind of like that game we saw yesterday, yesterday against Washington and Oregon.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll tell you this much, Christian. If one team would have 4 turnovers in this game, it's a turnover battle, right? Miami turned the ball 4 times. UNC didn't. But UNC had 14 penalties for 150 yards. So kind of sloppy on both sides. But when you turn the ball over 4 times, Christian, it's impossible to win a football game. I mean, the odds there are less than 2% probably. I mean, they always say whoever wins a turnover game usually wins the football game. Miami's had a problem all year with turning the ball over. They really, really have. It showed again last night. If you give them 4 possessions back, they possibly win this football game. So, but yeah, no, hats off to North Carolina. They're going to be tough. If they end up and don't slip up, they should be playing Florida State for an ACC title this year. I truly believe that. I think UNC's done a good enough job this year to prove a lot of people that, hey, so.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. Good thing. Good thing here is people are asking what happened to Louisville.
God.
I'll tell you what happened to them. We got really high on them, and then they folded. That's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Typical Louisville fashion. I mean, coming off the big win against Notre Dame last week, right? Pitt's a what, 1-4 team? A team in Pitt that I thought was going to win 8. I think us both did 8 or 9 wins this year, had a chance to do it for what, the 3rd or 4th consecutive year. Just got drug off the field. Louisville did. I mean, it looked like they didn't even. I don't even know if that was the same Louisville team that played last week, Christian.
Same players, maybe. A little more cockiness, a little confidence. It was because it was raining yesterday, right, in Pittsburgh.
Yes. Yep.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was one of those things where I think it's kind of one of those things where they were playing a team that was 1-4. It was rainy. Game was on the road. Had some confidence. Came out and they just were sleepwalking their way through it, and they got beat.
Yeah, no, that's one thing about college football. You see it all the time. That's one thing. It's unlike the NFL. College football is very up and down week to week, right? Team comes off a big win, turns around. Look at Georgia, for example, kind of. They just destroyed a good Kentucky team, turn around against Vandy, kind of lackluster, not a good game, and that's what looks like Louisville did. And it's unfortunate for Louisville because they needed that win. They needed that one bad against a team that's, like I said, Pitt's kind of a dumpster fire this year.
Oh yeah, they are. It was a good win for them, but I mean, I don't know if it's going to get much better.
Yeah, I agree.
UCLA, Oregon State, kind of like what we said happened. Freshman quarterback on the road. Oregon State, in Corvallis, too much for him.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of this. I just saw the score on the ticker, kind of what me and Christian definitely expected. Oregon State's a tough team. Their offense is definitely really good. They can put up some points on anybody.
Utah and Cal, it's weird. The whole thing with Utah is they started Harrison Barnes. I mean, he was the guy that they started, I think, originally, and then got benched. So the thing with Utah is we don't know if we're ever going to see Cam Rising come back and play, or if he will play or not. When he's going to play, I don't know. They're just doing what they need to do, and they're doing this whole 2-quarterback system. If somebody struggles, they'll put the next guy in, and if he struggles, they'll put the other guy back in. So Utah's just figuring out a way to win. I mean,
and they're really relying on the defense too, Christian. What you say? I mean, so far they got a pretty good D, I think.
I would say so. You know what I mean? I would definitely say that's exactly what they're doing. I think they struggle a lot more when they go on the road and they actually play somebody.
You said that best there. Yep.
Yeah, because otherwise it's real interesting to see. So NC State and Duke. Riley Leonardless Duke, by the way.
Yeah. The kid they had in there, I think he was only 4 for 12 for like 100 yards. I mean, Duke's defense is very underrated. That's one thing I noticed about them, and they played tough in that Notre Dame game against Sam Hartman. I mean, Duke's D is really, really good under Mike Elko, man. They really are. They're tough to score on. I mean, Duke's not they don't win real pretty. It's not fancy, but they're a physical football team. I'm saying that about a team that's a basketball school. So hats off to the Blue Devils, man. Big game coming up this week against Florida State, though, in that offense.
Woo, is it ever? Woo! Tennessee and Texas A&M. Man, Tennessee. Go ahead. I'll let you take it.
No, what I mean, I was just going to say, I don't know if I was really surprised. I think we both leaned Tennessee in this one. They were at home at Neyland. Tennessee, good win, but they still have that loss to Florida, man. And I just don't know what Tennessee is yet until they. I'm not saying A&M's a bad football team, but Christian, what's your thoughts here? You're the SEC man. Break it down for me.
I think like a lot of these teams we talk about, they're a lot different on the road than they are at home.
Yeah.
Because I think if that game was at Texas A&M,
I agree.
I probably think that score might be a little different.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the way I look at it. But Tennessee yesterday, I mean, defensively, I think they played their best game. Now, I will say this. I mean, they were getting to – that defense I saw yesterday looked a lot better. And, the offense with Max Johnson, I mean, he kind of He regressed, dude. He regressed. I mean, that's 3 losses right there for Texas A&M. I think the better question um, is this season going to get away from them? They can still win out. Is it likely? Probably not. But this season can start to get away from them very quickly.
Yeah, I brings up an interesting point. Jimbo, if he doesn't make it to a bowl game, or I don't even know if 6 wins is enough for A&M this year, as far as just keeping him, man. I don't know. I know that his contract is insane. The buyout's like 60 some million or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
But this is a guy that inherited a decent football team, recruits better than 95% of the teams in the country, Christian. He's got a good defense, a decent defense. I don't know, I guess, what to say about their defense this year so far. They gave up a lot of points to Miami and a couple other teams, Alabama. But do you keep him? I mean, is 6 and 7 wins enough to keep him if you're Texas A&M after this season?
No.
I agree.
No. I mean, not for what you're paying him. You know what I mean? If you go out and get like a coordinator that's never really coached before and you're paying him, not very much. I mean, obviously you could probably justify 6 or 7 wins, but A&M, that's the thing is they've gotten some taste at beating Bama, and they've gotten some taste of being successful in the SEC. So they want more. They want a national championship,
and they should with that talent.
And they should. They absolutely should. But like you said, I mean, the problem is you get to a point where, last year, super young, super young. And okay, I could understand that. But they lost a shit ton of talent as well in the transfer portal, in the offseason. So my question is, eventually that's got to come in, and that's got to stop, right? That's going to affect your recruiting to where you're not going to be getting a top 5 recruiting class or a top 10 recruiting class every year. And I think that, again, I'm looking at what's happening on the field. I mean, that was a very, if this was last year's Tennessee team, okay, that'd probably be a little different, right? The offense would have been a lot better, but the defense would have been probably a lot worse. So, but if you lose a shootout game to Tennessee like last year, I could understand that. But, yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, that was a very beatable Tennessee team in my opinion, and they weren't able to do it. So, yeah, Texas A&M, they got to figure out a way to get probably at least 7 or 8 wins this year, or I think Jimbo's going to be gone.
I agree. They brought in Petrino to revamp that offense since he's calling plays over there. Looks a little bit better this year. I know they're on their backup quarterback, but their backup quarterback's like literally my age, so he's played a lot of football. So going forward, man, A&M, yeah. Hats off Tennessee though; they got it done at Neyland. We'll find out what Tennessee is here in a couple weeks.
Oh, I agree. I agree with you, Chris.
There's a game we could pass over.
Yeah, Arizona, Washington State. We, same thing. It was Louisville. As soon as you get high on them, they get clipped by an Arizona team nobody saw coming.
Jesus, man. What in the fuck is going on with Washington State? My God, man, I'm pissed off about that. I lost some serious money yesterday on that game. My dumb ass bet on them. I thought they'd win that game outright. Didn't even come close. That game wasn't a game after the first 2 drives. I mean, it looked like there was 0 defense being played on Washington State. At home, even. At home. Sad.
Did not play any defense. It was at home. It was nobody would have expected that, I don't think, going into it. So, yeah, Chris, It was just a kind of like you said. I mean, it was just a weird game. I mean, I think probably the other side of it too is thinking about Arizona State. They did their self-imposed bowl ban. I had to make sure about that. But yeah, I mean, still hats off to the Wildcats, dude. Gronk's got to be happy about that somewhere.
I know, man. And that's the thing. I mean, you look at the stats in this game. Just get this for a second. Arizona had 516 yards of total offense. Washington State had 228 and 3 turnovers. I mean, what is going on? Cam Ward only threw the ball for 192 yards. That guy was slinging the ball for almost 500 yards a game for his first 4 or 5 games. And you can't tell me Arizona is a world beater. I mean, come on. Eesh.
Pac-12 starting to turn back into the Pac-12 that we remember.
Yeah, I think so, other than the top couple teams.
Auburn and LSU, I mean, Chris, here's the thing, right? You know, Gator says it best. I mean, LSU defense finally held someone under 20 points.
Ah,
I is it the defense of LSU or was it Auburn's offense just being terrible?
Auburn's offense is terrible, and I wanted to say something, and I wish the Auburn men were in here from that video me and you put out months ago. Laughed at us for saying Auburn's not going to make a bowl game. We said maybe 5 wins this year between Christian and I, and we got freaking just ramrodded on the internet. Don't know nothing. You don't understand this team, and Hugh Freeze. Blah, 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 blah. Peyton Thorne's a way better quarterback than you think he is. Auburn sucks. Auburn is a bad, bad football team. They will beat somebody this year that they're not supposed to beat. Maybe it's Alabama at the end of the year. They'll probably play their best game. But yeah, I agree because LSU's defense, I've watched enough LSU defense this year. You have 2 Christian that they're terrible. That's just all there is to it. And Auburn can't score more than 18 points. Their offense is atrocious.
Yeah, I agree. Auburn's going to be one of those weird teams that, I picked them in the offset, I think, to beat Alabama this year.
You might have done.
But I also said they're going to struggle throughout the year. They might be a 5 or 6 win team, right? But I could see them somehow, for whatever reason, in the Iron Bowl, turn it up, beating Alabama. And I think it could still happen. Is it likely? Probably not. But there is a way that it could happen. You know, obviously you'd have to have the best probably offensive day that you've had thus far. And you would also have to pray to God that Jalen Milroe looks average.
Well, Peyton Thorne yesterday, 12 of 23, 102 yards passing against a terrible LSU defense that's giving up 400 or 500 yards per game. Peyton Thorne is terrible. He was terrible at Michigan State. They didn't need him anymore. He's terrible at Auburn. That's all I'm going to say about Auburn. You're right, though. They could maybe beat Bama. They'll play one game this year where they played good against Georgia for a half. Maybe they can get one, put 2 together against an Alabama team. And you said Jalen Milroe's got to go out there and look like the bad version of Jalen Milroe for that to happen.
I mean, because like we said, I mean, Arkansas is not necessarily a world beater.
No.
And they still struggle with them. But, I mean, that's Bama, too. I mean, it's everybody at any given week can look bad and can look off. I mean, Gator says it, does Auburn beat Vandy? I mean, the rest of their schedule, I think, is Mississippi State, Vandy, Arkansas, New Mexico State, and then Alabama, obviously. But, I don't know. I mean, shit, I don't know. I mean, Mississippi State could beat them. Arkansas can beat them. I don't know shit about New Mexico State, so I'd have to probably take Auburn in that one. But I don't know. I mean, that's the thing about Vandy is that game at Vandy or is it Auburn?
It's at Vandy.
That Vandy? Probably not. Honestly. I mean, just looking at it from the outside looking in, especially if Vandy can kind of use what just happened in that game against Georgia, the fact that they were able to kind of hang around with the number 1 team in the country. They could use that for some momentum. Then, hell, I mean, I can see it happening. Well, I can see it happening in a world where Auburn loses to Vandy and somehow, for whatever reason, beats Alabama. Why? Because it's the weirdest shit that happens in that rivalry.
I agree. I'll say this. There's 4 teams without a conference win in the SEC right now. Vanderbilt's 0-4. Auburn's 0-3. Mississippi State's 0-3. And Arkansas is 0-4. I mean, that's a lot of bad teams right there. Auburn finds himself in that mix. Still have yet to get an SEC win. So it'll be interesting how they play. I don't think they're going to beat Ole Miss next week. I don't. I think Ole Miss is a better football team than Auburn. But, yeah, that Vandy game will be interesting there. It'll be very interesting if you're the Auburn, man. Can they get a dub in the SEC this year?
Something we haven't talked about, Chris.
Oh,
I don't even think we brought it up yesterday. We didn't bring this up yesterday. How about Oklahoma State? Oklahoma State, a team that we kind of wrote off, beat 2 Kansas teams in back-to-back weeks.
Mike Van Gundy getting it done after a team that Oklahoma State, I swear to God, if you look at their schedule, lost to a 1AA school this year, and I know they did.
Yeah.
And somehow is finding ways to win without Spencer Sanders there anymore. What is the Big 12? That's what me and Christian thought it was. The same shit different year recycled going on in the Big 12 again.
It's just a parody. I mean, basically.
It is.
I mean, I can't even sit up here and say, and this is weird to say, like, I know Oklahoma's looked really good, but would it shock you if somebody clips Oklahoma before they, but like, again, like let's say right now, obviously the narrative is that we're going to probably see Texas and Oklahoma play again for the Big 12 championship. And that'll probably decide who ends up getting to a playoff, right? That's what should happen based off talent, based off coaching, based off what we've seen up until this point. But kind of like with West Virginia and Houston, I don't trust the Big 12. I don't trust it.
Yeah. Speaking of, the Big 12 here, Christian, if I drop down there and go Iowa State, Cincinnati, there's another one. Cincinnati played Oklahoma super close this year. Iowa State got the doors blown off by TCU. TCU went out there yesterday and beat somebody by, I don't even remember, by 30. I don't understand the Big 12. You're right. I would be surprised if somebody would beat Oklahoma, though. I think so. I think those two teams, them and Texas, are just so much better than everybody else that they could afford to not show up in a game and still probably win ugly. I mean, it's hypothetically speaking, but But I'm with you. The rest of that conference, though, who's the third best team?
Good luck. Good luck.
Damn. Is it West Virginia?
I would have said that, yeah. But I mean, I mean, they've got one loss in conference play. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just, who knows, right? I mean, who really knows how that's going to play out? I mean, the way they lost that game.
Oh God,
that's an easy way to fold right there.
Yep.
It's an easy way to fold and go 500 the rest of the year, and not and just really, if you're Neil Brown or a West Virginia fan, kind of be stuck wondering what happened, what went wrong. Ole Miss did that last year in the SEC. Started the year off, what was it, 7-0?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, and lost how many in a row at the end of the season, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of parity and shit that we didn't see coming, how about Missouri and Kentucky yesterday?
You know what? Kentucky was up 14-0 in that game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Mark Stoops should have just shut his mouth against Georgia, because now it looks like it's coming back to bite him in the ass. I thought Kentucky would win that football game yesterday at home. I know Mizzou's got a pretty good offense. I think his name's Brady Cook, and they got obviously my boy Luther Burden the third out there. But I expected more out of Kentucky's defense. Missouri hung damn near a 40 bomb on him. Devin Leary can't get the offense down the field offensively throwing the ball. I don't know what that says about Kentucky. I actually speaks more about Missouri, in my opinion. Missouri's not too bad of a football team, especially in the SEC the way it is this year. Missouri definitely deserves to be ranked after this one. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say this. Missouri's going to clip somebody they shouldn't. I mean, they did it last night. Shit. I mean, they've been doing it. I mean, they've kind of just been hanging around.
Yep.
So, it's time for us to give Missouri their flowers. I mean, they're going to be a top 25 team this year from what it looks like.
I think so.
So, and they might be a top 25 team, and so it'll be interesting, dude. It'll be real interesting to see what happens. Looking ahead here, Rutgers, Michigan State. That was a very interesting game.
Michigan State was up 24-6.
Yeah,
in that game. I'm not going to get started on Big Ten West teams. Don't get me started. Don't even do it.
What about the Big Ten West teams? I haven't heard anything about them.
Well, fuck it. Let's get into it. Iowa, Wisconsin. Christian's body double playing quarterback for Iowa.
Hold on 1 second.
God,
hold on 1 second.
I can't even keep a straight face when we do Iowa anymore, or Wisconsin for that matter.
Oh
Jesus.
Shit! Hold on.
If anybody watched this game yesterday, this might have been the boringest. I didn't even know this type of football existed in 2023, but it does. It's like they set football back about 100 years yesterday. Watching this, if anybody watched this game, which I'm not saying you should have.
Oh my God! That's probably why we were missing some people today. We get high on Wisconsin and Deacon Hill, my body double. I mean, they got him listed at 6'3", 258 pounds. That guy looked closer to 6'2", 280. Right? I mean, it looked like me out there playing quarterback. I mean, I had to do a double take. I was like, is that left tackle wearing number 10?
Well, yeah, I had to text you and go, are you playing quarterback?
Fucking 6 of 14, 37 yards, Chris. I mean, he literally completed 6 passes the week prior. He was 6 of 21. I mean, I guess if you want to look for improvement, he completed the same amount of passes on half the pass attempts, basically. So there's your improvement. But in all honesty, I don't understand it. 37 yards. I'm pretty sure I could know nothing about Iowa's offense, walk off the street right now, and go play quarterback for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, granted, I get it. It was Wisconsin. Their defense is normally pretty good, but this isn't the same Wisconsin we've seen in years past, right?
No.
I mean, this is a Wisconsin team that offensively has their own issues, and also, right? Also, I would say their defense isn't probably as good as what they've been in years past either.
No, I got to look at the stat again. Just touch on it again. 6 of 14 for 37 yards, and then you see a long of 14. So you take away that 1 14-yard play. 6 completions for 21 yards, or 5 completions for 20. What the hell is going on, dude? You said it best. I don't know where this Deacon Hill guy came from, but I'm pretty sure I could come out there and throw the ball. If you guys watch this game, I'm sorry. It was so ugly. There was a series, or there was a couple series in this game, I think, where I sent this to Christian. 6 consecutive series for Iowa in a row, a total of 3 yards. I mean, is that even possible in today's era of college football? How is that possible, Chris? Somebody needs to explain that to me, how you get 3 yards at 6 possessions.
I had to do a double take, dude, from what I was watching. I thought I was watching a game from 1997.
God, man.
I mean, and that's about what it looks like. But here's the thing, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, Iowa's 6-1.
Yeah. Their only loss is to Penn State, I think, or is that right? Is it Penn State? I think it is Penn State.
I mean,
that's
it's Penn State. But that's the thing, right? Like, what other conference in America, honestly, Chris, could you have that terrible of an offense, be that anemic on offense, have 37 yards passing, and be 6-1?
I don't know. Only the Big Ten West. That's what kills me, man. It's like, I don't get it. And I'm going to say this. I know some of our usual listeners aren't in here this morning. They're Big Ten people. Big Ten the Big Ten West is up for grabs. Somebody is going to play for a championship in the Big Ten out of this conference. And I don't even want to watch that game because they don't hold a candle to Penn State, Ohio State, or Michigan. And this is just, it's embarrassing, honestly. As a fan and a team, I got a team in the Big Ten West. This is atrocious. It is. That was supposed to be the 2 best teams before season started, Christian, in the Big Ten West this year was Iowa and Wisconsin. You got a 12-6 ball game. I swear both teams maybe had 150 yards of total offense between them. It was just, it's atrocious. And I don't want to hear the defenses are elite. I don't want to hear it.
No. They're just playing bad offenses. I mean, week in and week out. I mean, offenses that are struggling to kind of get any kind of confidence or anything going, and that are, super heavy, reliant on their run game, and they're trying to throw it back, and it's all fun and good because everybody's struggling right now, and it's kind of working in conference play. But for example, if you take some of these conference games, like if you take Iowa, right, and you go throw Iowa up against, the 5th best team or the 6th best team in the SEC, what's going to happen?
Oh, God. Oh, you know what's going to happen.
I know exactly what's going to happen. Like, that could be a thing we see, right? Like, you take Iowa against Florida.
Oh.
Wouldn't that, or, take Wisconsin against Florida. I mean, wouldn't that be the weirdest thing you see right there? Graham Mertz comes back, beats the dog shit out of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's college football, man. It is, it is what it is. I mean, and Gator says if we said that to begin the season, we said I got a feeling. I kept saying it and shouting it from the rooftops. Right now, I understand. Hey, Wisconsin's quarterback, got hurt and banged his hand off someone's helmet in that game. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. If he's going to be out, for how long will he be out? They had to put a freshman quarterback in there to kind of play in his absence, and that's why that game was so weird of a score and just looked so ugly and sloppy. But I said it to start the year off. Wisconsin's going to wish by the end of this season that they had Graham Mertz as their quarterback still.
I just don't get it, I guess, because they threw the ball for 228 yards, Wisconsin did, but they were 2-19 on third down. How? They threw the ball 50 fucking times and only scored 6 points? I just don't understand this Wisconsin team, especially I'm really disappointed in the head coach, who I really like, in Luke Fickell. I mean, this guy's supposed to be able to coach offenses up. What the fuck is going on in Wisconsin? Where's Dan at when I need him? But I agree with you. I guess that Graham Mertz needs to go back to Wisconsin. I hope they meet in a bowl game. And they might. It might happen.
It might. It might. Oh, we skipped over a game here too, and that was Illinois Maryland. Illinois Maryland, dude, that was wow. We were talking about the Big Ten, West over there, and just the Big Ten in general. Both of these teams were two teams we were super high on coming into the year.
Yeah.
And then, I think as the season went on, okay, we were still somewhat high on Maryland, right?
Yeah, they were undefeated up until last week.
And we started down the stretch. I think we started kind of folding a lot more on Illinois.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And they somehow, for whatever reason, on the road at Maryland, decided to wake up and play football.
I don't get it, though. Maryland brought back more talent almost than anybody in the Big Ten. You start the season off 4-0. You lose. You played with Ohio State for 3 quarters in that game. They played with them the entire 3 quarters, got beat by the better team at the end of the day. And then you go out and shit the bed against an Illinois team that can't score more than 10 points or can't get out of their own road. I don't know. Outside of Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State, the rest of the Big Ten, I think, is just a dumpster fire. Yeah. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's kind of like what we're talking about with the Big 12. I mean, outside of maybe Texas and Oklahoma, which I don't even know if we were sold on them, and I will still say this: I still think they are the best 2 teams as of right now in the Big 12. But it really sets up this situation. Anybody can beat anybody.
Yeah, exactly. You said it.
I mean, somebody said it best in the chat a little bit ago. I mean, let me just do this real quick just to make sure I'm not tripping on here. I mean, Oklahoma had the bye week. But they do play BYU. I mean, again, I know BYU got skull drug yesterday.
That one I don't think they lose. I don't.
They play the game at BYU, though, Chris.
Yeah, but I'm just not sold on BYU at all. I think if they're going to – what's the rest of Oklahoma's schedule look like, Christian? Is there a few other schools where maybe they could – I just don't see BYU. I think they're going to play a tough game against somebody. I know they played Cincinnati, played them tough. Oh, they got Kansas, Oklahoma State. That's the Bedlam, was it Bedlam series, whatever the hell they call it, rivalry. West Virginia. They got West Virginia.
Yeah, they got West Virginia.
So, and by the way, Oklahoma plays Central Florida next week. That's who they play. They play BYU second to last game of the season.
Yeah, UCF, Kansas, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, BYU, TCU, last game of the year. I mean, it could happen. I'm not saying it's going to, but I mean, I don't know. I guess that's the thing. I haven't seen Brent Venables, I guess, do it and prove to me that he can not be Lincoln Riley and not slip up once a year. Now, I do think he's a much better coach. I do think defensively they are much better off. I still think they're still getting those offensive recruits because they're Oklahoma, and Oklahoma always seems to have, explosive offenses, right? I mean, you can go back even to the Stoops days where they had, Sam Bradford, and they had a lot of those guys, they've had some really good offenses, I feel like, but that's the thing. Like Oklahoma, to me, can Venables get and that was the biggest question. Can Oklahoma's defense ever take that step up? And I'll be honest, I'm higher on Oklahoma probably as Texas and Oklahoma get ready to go to the SEC in the upcoming years than I am probably over Texas. Because we saw it how many times this week, in the last couple of weeks, where you have to be able to play defense. You have to be able to get a stop at certain points of the game. You can. It's great if you're Colorado and you can put up a quadrillion points a game, but if you can't stop anybody, then you're going to have shit happen like it's been happening. Where, we keep talking about this, where it's, they came out flat or they do this. No, they just suck on defense, right? They just suck on defense. And it's not that they play down or they play up to their competition. It's just they probably have a slow starting day on offense, and they've already and you look up and they've already got themselves in a 14-point hole.
Yeah, like I said, speaking of those two going over, my thing is I think both those teams will do well over in the SEC. They both recruit so well. So that's 90% of it in college football, in my opinion. Do you recruit and you put talent out on the field? I think Venables is a good coach. I think he's got their defense locked in. I still think Texas is a really good team. Texas should have won that game last week. They had 3 turnovers in that game. They probably could have won that. I think they're going to play each other again. We'll find out. But I still think both these schools get back in the Big 12. There's not a team out there outside of those two in the Big 12 that scare me at all. Like, it's just, I'm not saying somebody can't slip up. It does happen, but you said it best. If Venables can get through this season without a loss and play the Big 12 title game, see what happens. Probably a coach of the year candidate, in my opinion. He's done a good job. Oklahoma won their first 5 games last year and then lost like 8 in a row. That's how bad their season was last year. They didn't make a bowl game. So he's done a good job. This is his second year there. So hats off the Oklahoma Sooners.
Hats off to the old Boomer Sooner over there.
Absolutely.
Well, Chris, as we approach the hour mark here on the show, we're getting ready here. We got about another couple of hours here before the NFL kicks off. I think for the most part, be sure to let us know what you guys are most excited on. Comment below on this video. We got some people that are excited. Their team is 5-2, 3-1 in conference play. A lot of us, including me and Chris, said that they probably weren't going to be 5-2 at this point of the season. Of course, we are referring to the Maryland Terrapins. No, I'm just fucking. We were talking about the Florida Gators there. Again, let's make sure we have a clean week here. It is a bye week. Mozilla in the house. Great seeing us again. Great seeing you, buddy.
That. Thank you.
But yeah, I think probably what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up getting back on here on Thursday this week. I got a conference I got to go to. I got a meeting on Wednesday, so it'll be Thursday this week. And so be sure to catch us Thursday at about 7 o'clock. It's going to go down. We'll do our preview show. And we look forward to seeing you guys then. Chris, anything to say as we get ready to get off?
No, just appreciate the support, guys. Thanks for dropping in on a Sunday morning. I know it's tough to get up, at 9 o'clock Central Time. Our West Coast guys are probably still sleeping. Dan's probably on suicide, watch, or will, I should say, after Oregon missed that field goal last night or yesterday afternoon. So, but no, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for the support. I think we'll catch you guys on Thursday. So that's all I got, Christian.
Absolutely. Mozilla, I appreciate that, man. It is criminally underrated that we only have 3 people around here. It's a grind. We appreciate it. We're excited about it. Graham Mertz, hey, man, I'm going to start donating to your NIL collective over there. Let's get after it.